Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel, What Do You Think and Why? Where we ask the big questions and dig into the truth together. So let me ask you something real. Have you ever been in a place where everything just collapsed and suddenly fell apart? So much so that it left you wondering and questioning if your life will ever feel whole and complete again. Maybe it was a job you lost, or the loss of someone near and dear to you. Maybe it was a relationship that shattered and broke your heart. Maybe it was a dream that felt like it slipped right through your fingers just as you was about to touch it. And in those moments, you didn't feel strong. No, you didn't feel brave, and you definitely didn't feel like the hero in any story. But what you did feel was you felt defeated. You felt empty, alone, and neglected. Just left behind while the rest of the world kept spinning and moving along. But what if I told you those moments, that pain, that loss, that emptiness, and that sense of failure was not the end? But instead, what if those setbacks were actually part of the setup? What if they were all the opening chapters to your comeback story? Now, I'm not here to slap a pretty quote on your pain, because I know what pain feels like. And this isn't about toxic positivity or pretending that things are okay when in fact they're not. This is about something much deeper, something sacred. Because what if the thing or the things that broke you are actually the very things that's about to build you up, to elevate you and bring you into a higher level of awareness and consciousness? Because you see, the older you get, the more you begin to realize that life has a strange way of disguising its greatest lessons and blessings inside of our greatest struggles and failures. So let's be honest. We don't want failures. We don't enjoy disappointments. But what we do want and desire is, well, for everything to work out just the way we want and just the way we plan. We want victory, but sometimes life hands us defeat. We pray and ask for strength, but we're met with weakness. We ask for patience, but instead we find ourselves having to deal with difficult people or difficult situations. Then we pray again for wisdom. We pray for clarity, but everything goes foggy and our judgments get cloudy. And in those moments, it's very easy to believe that we're off track, that somehow we miss our time, our moment, or our chance, or that we're falling behind some invisible timeline of success. But what if the opposite is true? What if that failure in itself is not a detour, but in fact is the exact road you were meant to walk through in order to find your power, in order to find your purpose? And what if setbacks are actually life's raw ingredients for building something far more meaningful than ease or comfort could ever do? What if setbacks are actually trying to instill in you resilience, wisdom, patience, emotional stability, and strength? Think about it. Every comeback story you've ever heard of and admired, every role model and hero you look up to, they all have one thing in common. At some point in their journey, if you were to ask them, they would tell you how many times they fell, how many times they felt lost or have actually lost their way. They will tell you how many times they've suffered, they've cried, or been betrayed. But then they rose, they got up, and they didn't just bounce back. Instead, they came back stronger. They came back wiser. They came back with new eyes to see things they could not comprehend before. They would tell you they began to see and accept people for who they are and not who they would like them to be. It's like they have a new mission and a goal in life. They now have a fire and a drive that didn't exist before the storm. So when you see people that you admire, that you look up to, you see their fire. And it's that fire that inspires others. And now that fire becomes the light they carry. And that fire, that's what lights the path for someone else who thinks they'll never make it out of their own darkness. Because here's the truth. Your comeback isn't just for you. It's for them too. It's for the people who will see your scars and realize they too can heal. It's for the ones who will someday hear your story and find strength for their own journey. It's for the ones who will see that you didn't stay down, that you did not give up. And because of that, maybe, just maybe, they won't either. So let me ask you again. Do you think your setback, whatever it was, do you think that it was an accident? Or do you feel deep down in your soul that maybe, just maybe, it was part of your story? It was part of your comeback story. And it was part of something much bigger and much greater. And what if you can look back over your life and you can admit that you were not being buried, but in fact, you were being planted, so that in due time and in the right season, you would rise again, rooted, resilient, and unstoppable. Because you now realize that your failure wasn't the finale, but the foreshadowing of your greatest victory. And what if there's beauty inside of your brokenness? What if there's meaning inside of the mess? And what if your lowest moments are actually the launch pad that is waiting to launch you into something greater than you can ever imagine? And not just for your own sake, but for the people who haven't even met you as yet. The people you haven't met as yet. People who will one day hear your story and say, because you didn't give up, I didn't give up either. So this conversation here, my friend, is more than just a talk. This is a reminder that your setback isn't your sentence. It's not your final destination. It's your signal. It's your signal that the comeback is already on the way. And maybe things in your life are not going as planned right now. Or maybe something in your life didn't work out the way you would have wanted it to. Maybe you're healing from a failure, a heartbreak, a loss, or even just life not turning out the way you thought it would. I'm here to tell you, trust the process. Stay the course. Don't give up. It will get better. And how do I know this? Well, I can tell you it's because I've been there. Oh yes, my friends, I've been there. And I'm not here to say or pretend that life is always easy, because we know that it's not. But experience has taught me that life is about owning the pain. It's about learning from it and rising above it. So let me take you back to one of the moments that changed everything for me. Years ago, I hit what I thought was rock bottom. I had a plan, a clear, well thought out life plan. I had my career all mapped out. I had my goals set, dreams high, and I worked hard. Oh, I worked hard. I sacrificed so much, and I believed everything was on track. Well, because as we say it, Life was good. And then it all crumbled. In a matter of weeks, I lost my job, my relationship ended, and financially, I was drained. I found myself waking up with stress and anxiety, going to bed with doubt and fear, and walking through each day just in a fog. And it didn't just feel like failure, it felt like I had lost my identity. I no longer knew who I was, and that's because my entire life was built on my career and my job. I'm talking about a career that took me years to build. School, late night studies, and money invested. So now, laying on my bed and staring up at the ceiling, I realized I wasn't just broke, I was broken. And you know what? No one really prepares you for how loud the silence is after a failure, a breakup, or loss of something dear to you. Yes, people check in at first, but then they go back to their own lives, and you're left alone. Alone with self-blame, alone with the guilt, the bills, the shame, and worst of all, you're left alone with the voices in your head. You know, the ones that whisper, you're never gonna bounce back from this. You're gonna forever be broke and lonely. And so I spent weeks upon weeks just spiraling. Not because of the failure itself, but because I attach the failure to my self-worth. And here's what I didn't know back then, and what I need you to hear right now. And that is this: a setback doesn't define you. Your response to it does. And let me tell you, there's always a turning point in life if you don't give up, or if you stop believing the lies. Because one night, while sitting on my floor in a dark apartment, scrolling through job rejections and old messages, something clicked. And I realized I had two choices. One of them being I can stay broken, I can remain bitter and stay stuck. Or I can use the broken pieces of my life to build something new. And no, I didn't suddenly wake up motivated and knowing exactly what I was going to do. In fact, I woke up tired, but determined. I decided to stop asking why me and started asking, what can I learn from this experience? And how can I use this terrible moment in my life to my advantage? And so little by little, I started rebuilding not just my life, but myself. I began to read more. I began to journal. I showed up for events and invitations, even when inside I felt lost, lonely, and defeated. I reached out for help. I reframed the story I told myself about my situation, and I also began the journey of redefining what success meant to me. Success was no longer a status. My focus was now learning to be content and at peace with what I had and who I am. And from that perspective, what I found was this: your comeback doesn't require perfection. It doesn't require a fat bank account, even though that's nice. But it simply requires determination and movement. Just one honest step at a time. And so I started small. Morning walks, learning new skills, creating goals based on my core values, not society's timeline. And no, it wasn't a grand Hollywood comeback. In fact, it was quiet and gradual, but it was real. So what did that setback teach me? Well, here are 5 truths I learned. I learned, number one, that failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. I've learned that you are not your worst moment. That pain is a powerful teacher if you stop running away from it. I've learned that your comeback starts the moment you take responsibility. And number 5, I've learned that you're stronger than you think, but you have got to choose growth. Because honestly, when we fail or when life knocks us down, our first instinct is often to blame ourselves. We question everything. We say things like, what did I do wrong? Why is this happening to me? Am I not good enough? But here's the truth. The presence of a setback doesn't mean you're not meant to succeed. It may actually mean the opposite. See, in every powerful story of growth, there's always a moment of breaking. We call it that breaking point. Before the rise, there's the fall. Before the clarity, there's confusion. Before mastery, there's mistake after mistake after mistake. So know that pain you're feeling, it's not punishment, it's preparation. You're being prepared to carry something more than you can ever imagine. But sometimes, to hold something bigger, you have to release what was smaller. And that release, that's the storm. That's the job you lost, the relationship that didn't last, that didn't work out, the season that drained you. It feels like the end, but in reality, it's just the soil being turned because something deeper is about to grow. And here's something nobody really talks about. Comfort. Comfort rarely teaches, but in fact, setbacks are the ones that give us what comfort never could. But pain, pain itself has a way of cutting right through the noise. When you're uncomfortable, uncertain, or even shattered, that's when the deepest parts of you starts to speak. That's when the truth shows up. And you learn who you are. You learn what matters. You see people's true colors. And you learn your true colors as well. Comfort is where dreams are born, yes, but discomfort is where character is built. And character, my friend, is what sustains the dream. Anyone can succeed once, but to rise, fall, and rise again, oh, that takes determination. That takes tenacity, and that's a life of impact. So yes, your setback, it hurt, but it also gave you something. It gave you clarity, it gave you insight, compassion even, grit, and an unbreakable spirit. It gave you a voice that can now reach others who are lost in their own pain. And that's the turning point where your pain can become someone else's survival guide. And let's be real, you didn't go through what you did just to keep it to yourself. I don't think so. That fire you walk through, that loss, that heartbreak, that failure, it carries power. Not just for your healing, but for someone else's. Because here's the beauty of shared humanity. Someone out there needs your story. They don't need your perfection. What they need is your truth. They need to hear your story. Because you see, when you speak from your scars, not your open wounds, you give someone else permission to believe in their own healing. And what could be more powerful than that? So share your story, and remember, we don't just overcome for ourselves. We overcome so we can light a path, so others can know that they are not alone. We share our stories so others can see proof that setbacks are not the end, but in fact, they're the beginning of a testimony. So don't despise your story, no matter how dark it might be. Get help and counseling if need be, but don't hide it. Don't despise it. Don't bury it. Because you survived that season for a reason. And you are still here as a living reminder that failure isn't fatal and that comeback is real. And that there are lessons that failures and setback teaches us that victories won't be able to teach us. Think of the greatest people you admire. Those who have real substance, not just fame or influence, but depth. People like that didn't get that way through smooth sailing. They got there because they went through the valley and they endured and learned some tough stuff. And what they learned is priceless. They've learned how to wait with patience. They've learned how to move forward with humility, how to let go with peace, how to start over with courage, and how to love themselves even when the world walked away. Because you see, victory teaches us how to celebrate, but failure teaches us how to build, how to dig deep and find something inside ourselves we didn't even know existed. Sometimes the very thing you're trying to avoid, things like failure, heartbreak, rejection, is the one thing that will develop the wisdom and the spiritual muscle you've been praying for. So maybe the setback wasn't a detour from your path. Maybe it was the path. And remember that comeback is not a moment in time, but it's a process. Comebacks don't happen overnight. They're not dramatic movie scenes with swelling music and a sudden, happy ending. No. Real comebacks are quiet at first. They happen in the decisions that nobody sees. They happen getting out of bed when everything in you wants to give up. Choosing peace over panic. Speaking kindness over bitterness, giving yourself more grace, starting again, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. And day by day, you grow, you heal, you strengthen, until one day you look in the mirror and realize, wow, I didn't just survive that, I grew from it. And that's the moment when you realize that the comeback isn't just something happening around you, but it's actually happening within you. So always keep in mind and remember that someone else out there, somewhere, is waiting for the story you're still writing. Someone is waiting for the story you haven't even finished writing yet. They're struggling in silence. They're hurting, doubting, maybe even considering giving up. But one day, they'll hear your voice. They'll read your post or your book. They'll listen to your story, your podcast. They'll see your resilience, your tenacity, and your strength. And it will click. And in that moment, they will say, if they made it, maybe, just maybe, I can too. So know that your story does matter. Your comeback matters. And not just for your own peace, but for your legacy. You never know how far the ripples of your healing will reach. So keep going. Not because life is perfect right now, but because it's meaningful. It's still worth living. And know that you're not just living for comfort anymore. You're living with purpose and for purpose. So remember, it was never just a setback. It was a setup. And yes, I know it felt like it was all falling apart. I know it didn't make sense when you were in the middle of it. But hear me now. It was never just a setback. It was a setup for your rising, a setup for your clarity, for your purpose, a setup for the people you will one day reach just by being you. So don't let that lesson or that season of loss define you. Let it refine you. And when the time comes, and it will come, you'll look back and say, that thing that I thought would destroy me, it actually built me. So if you're in a setback season right now, don't quit. You're in the middle, not the end. And your comeback is going to be louder, stronger, and more powerful than anything you'd imagine. Because you're not just coming back, you're coming through. You're coming through wiser, braver, and ready to shine. And if you're in the middle of your setback right now, I want you to hear this. You're not too late. You're not too broken. And this moment is not the end. It's a page, not the whole story. So today, ask yourself, what is this setback here to teach me? Who do I want to become through this pain? Because the greatest comebacks are born not when everything gets easy, but when you decide you deserve better. So leave your comment, share your story. And before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with a question. Do you think that setbacks and failures are actually designed for our comeback stories? That maybe, just maybe, the things we think are breaking us are really shaping us, so that one day we can share our story and help someone else. Do you think that's the motive? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you believe the setbacks in your life have a purpose? Have they taught you something that's made you stronger? So please take a moment and share in the comments your story, your perspective, your hope. And let's encourage one another. Let's build a space where healing isn't hidden and comebacks are celebrated. Because I truly believe that when we share, we heal. And we remind each other that no one is alone. No one needs to be alone. So I want to thank you all for being here with me. And if you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe, because I've got more truth, more healing, and more comeback energy coming your way. Remember, your story's not over. It's just beginning. So don't let it stop you. And don't stop at motivation. Take one step today and comment below, even if it's just, I'm starting, I'm healing. And let's grow through what we go through together. And remember, this could very well be your comeback season. So don't you dare quit. And don't you dare give up. So until next time, remember that your setback is not your ending. It's the start of your most powerful comeback story yet. And as always, remember that here, we don't just think, we think deep. See you next time.